So if you're watching this channel, you're probably a filmmaker, and if you've been on the internet in the past few years, you've probably heard of Shotdeck. It's just a library of movie and music video and TV stills. It's a pretty awesome resource. And this month they're back with their annual Shotdeck Recreation Challenge, where they challenge people to recreate a still from the Shotdeck library at home with their family and friends. I love doing at-home camera and lighting tests, and this seems like a really fun way to practice my craft. So I'm going to go into Shotdeck and pull a few potential options, and then my partner and I are going to go ahead and try to recreate one together. So as of now, I haven't shot any of this yet, so this is all pretty speculative, but I'm excited to see what we can come up with. So as I'm looking through Shotdeck, I'm trying to be practical and think about what resources I have access to, what kind of stills will play into my strengths. So I've gone through and pulled several different stills, but ultimately I think what we've landed on is this really incredible still from the 1966 Bergman film Persona. And there's a couple reasons why I think this is going to be really a great option. So number one, we kind of look like the people in the photo, or at least my partner does, and I can wear a hat. Also, I really love the classic style of lighting. It's something that you don't see as much anymore, and I think that'll be really fun to try to recreate. Also, just compositionally and tonally, it's just a really incredible image, and I think it'll be fun to kind of dive into some of the technical aspects and how we can try to recreate those today. So looking through some of the tagged data on Shotdeck, it gives me a few clues about how we might want to pull this off. Number one, it tells you the aspect ratio and the format, which in this case is 1:37 35mm film. They also kind of give their best guess about the lighting and the composition and the lens type. And in this case, I agree. I think it's a long lens with hard light, and it's kind of a high contrast image. Just thinking about the time period, they're most likely using tungsten lighting here, and so we'll try to recreate that in our own tests as well. As we start to zoom in on the image, we can really read into more about how they may have lit this. In her eye, you can see that there's just a single small circular catch light. And to me, that just tells me that this is some sort of hard circular light source. So it could be a Fresnel, it could be a Source 4, something like that. Also, when you look at her jaw, you can see that there is some light coming from the other direction as well. And that's kind of giving that glow along the bottom of her chin and also lighting the person in the foreground. There's also a really nice fall off from where the light's hitting on the eyes and then falling off towards the bottom of the chin. And it's kind of feathered nicely. So we'll have to try to play with that and see if we can do that with flags, or if we want to use a Source 4 and kind of shutter the fixture in. One challenge here is definitely going to be just trying to light them separately from each other and just controlling where all the light is spilling. You can definitely see that the light is very frontal on her, but it's not really spilling on the person in the foreground. That being said, the person in the foreground is not falling all the way to black, so we just really want to make sure that our contrast levels are dialed in and look similar to what we see in the image here. This was shot on 35mm film. I'll be recreating it with my red Komodo, so the format size will be loosely the same. But you can really see the compression happening here from the use of a longer lens. So I'm not entirely sure what lens set they used. I couldn't find that information. But what really matters is that we try to match the focal length. Of course, we're somewhat limited by space in this apartment, so we'll have to do our best to just squeeze it in where we can. So now I'm inside of the SightlessLink app, and I'm just gonna go ahead and create a general diagram of how we wanna execute this shot recreation. So to start, I've loosely just placed our actors and the camera. So the first light I'm adding in is this 1000 watt LiCo. And I think this would be a good choice here because a LiCo is a really versatile light. It allows us to shape the beam really nicely, cut it off where we don't want it, and focus and defocus the beam. So we'll kind of use that for our hard key light on our main subject. And then I've also placed a tungsten Fresnel, which will act as a backlight. So I think those are our main two lights for our subjects, and then we also need our background. So just for the example here, I've placed a magic cloth as a background, and then we can kind of shoot some light into that, and that'll be our overexposed background. And I've placed an Amaran F22C behind that, and that's just going to evenly light all of that material. Okay, well now I feel good. We got a good plan of attack, so I'm just gonna go grab some equipment and we'll start setting this up. So as you'll see here, we basically set up what we talked about in our lighting diagram. We have a LiCo acting as our key light, And then we have an Amaran 100D as the backlight, which just allows us to have really fine control over the level. And then it's just the Amaran F22C through a really thick silk. So in order to make it a little easier for us to line ourselves up perfectly with the original image, I actually took the image and loaded it into my small HD as an overlay. And then we were able to drop the opacity on that, and it allowed us to really line ourselves up accurately with the source image. Props and wardrobe wise, we had to try to recreate the hat that the subject is wearing, so we just made that out of paper and drew a line on it with Sharpie, and then we just put on some wardrobe that loosely matched what they were wearing in the original. And then from there, it was really just a game of trying to match the image as closely as possible. So it was a lot of just tweaking our position slightly, tweaking the lighting a little bit, and just kind of balancing everything out. I couldn't actually see the monitor, so you'll see my partner kind of moving me around, and that's just to get me in the right position. And then I would do my best to hold that, which was pretty tricky.